Yeah, okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrya. Again, it's great to introduce myself. I am a third year transfer student. So, SDSU, this is my first semester here. I transferred from Miracosta Community College, where I majored and got my associate degree in liberal arts and humanities. And now I'm studying Africana studies here at SDSU, which is so exciting. My career goal is to then become an academic counselor and serve to support marginalized student groups as they navigate higher education. I think it's mainly the mentorship that I experienced at my community college that pushed me to want to become an academic counselor and see other students succeed the same way I did. Growing up, so I was raised by my paternal grandparents and my dad. My biological mom, I've never met a day in my life. She and my father met when my dad was in the Marine Corps. She was 19 and he was 21, so it was just a young love story. But it fizzled out, and so my dad had moved back to California to finish his service here at Camp Pendleton base. And then one day he got a phone call, and it was his commander saying, "Hey, you have a kid. Like, you have a kid." And my dad was like, "No way." And then he thought back on it and he was like, "Yeah, sounds about right. The time is adding up." So when they found out that they were having me, he wanted to finish out the rest of his time in the service and then come back and raise me. But like with many life challenges and being a veteran and trying to like get back up on his feet, it honestly just didn't end up working out that way. So I was raised by his parents, my grandparents. And with that like structure of an old fashioned like upbringing, it shaped me a lot because I had numerous experiences being like raised by grandparents, being an only child, and then like still trying to like figure out where do I fit in society, especially being young and black. I think there was other things that I had to navigate as well. I'm a professional singer. I found my love for singing when I was very young. I was singing before I could talk in full sentences, so I found a love for gospel, jazz, pop, and blues. And when I decided to pursue my professional singing career, it was like around the time of high school. I've traveled and competed all over the state of California and around the country. Classically trained, but again, gospel, jazz, and blues are my favorites to perform. So I don't know, maybe around SDSU you'll see me do a couple engagements and things like that as well. And music has also just been like a way to keep me grounded. Because when there was nothing else, there was songs. So yeah. Yeah, okay, well, I'll start with singing. So, like I said, I was growing up in church with my old fashioned grandparents. Church was a big deal. So, like I said, before I could speak in full coherent sentences, I was learning to sing. And when I was raised by my biological mom for the very short period that I was with her, I had a lot of like developmental setbacks. I was not where I was at for an 18-month-old. I wasn't reaching those milestones that a typical child would be. So, when I was put into school by my grandparents, the teachers were like, "She learns a lot faster when we put stuff into song." So from there, that's all they did. They put things into song. How did I learn how to brush my teeth? By song. How did I learn how to tie my shoes? By song. And all those other things was just by music. So they were like, "She really likes to sing." So they put me in like choirs and small groups and things like that, and it flourished. And then right before the pandemic hit, I went and auditioned for America's Got Talent. And that was a pivotal point because my parents, they were like, "Sabrya's gonna get us out. Sabrya's gonna like make us famous and put our names on the map." So I did make it to AGT. I got onto the live shows for America's Got Talent. And it was right before COVID, right? So the anticipation was growing. But when the pandemic was announced, AGT decided to go virtual, and they asked all contestants if they wanted to compete virtually. And I was like, you know what? I'm a sophomore in high school. I think I want to like see myself through high school before I jump into like the music industry. So I declined AGT. Who knew I would be able to like say that sentence one day? I declined America's Got Talent and decided to just pursue my own singing endeavors. But I think some of the main things that shaped me was growing up with my grandparents and seeing how much of a sacrifice that they put in for me, and how hard it was not growing up with biological parents. I think seeing kids talk about my mom and my dad this, my family that, I didn't have that exact story. And I would always grow up and try and like almost lie to like seem like I was fitting in because I didn't see enough people that looked like me or had my story to be able to say like, "Oh, I'm just like the other people." So shout out to my grandparents. They're the reason why I kept going, and they're my everything. So yeah. It started in high school. I was surrounded by a lot of peers that were like, oh, Sabrya, like you don't keep up in math class, or I think just always competing or always trying to like be with the crowd. And I had to really overcome that. And I think also at that pivotal age where you're like a young girl, you just want to assimilate in, and I had to fight that feeling because I knew I was not like other students. Everybody's unique in their own way, and I had to find my uniqueness. So when it came to deciding where I was going to go to college, that was so hard because all my classmates were going straight to like UC Davis, UC Berkeley, and I was like, how do you even have the money for that? Like that's crazy. And so I felt so much at a disadvantage deciding to go to community college. I felt really, really small, like extremely small. Nobody else went to community college except for a handful of us. And people kept saying community college is going to like change your life. It's going to be so beneficial. And I was like, yeah. I'm not with my other people. So clearly I'm not doing something right. But the time I spent at community college and how much it shaped me and how much I did learn and how great community college actually was, I was like, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm doing something right. Saved myself so much money, made a whole lot of friends, knew what I wanted to do when I got to university, had my head screwed on straight, and I have community college to thank for that. But I had to overcome that barrier of feeling like an ant in a world full of like giants. So yeah. I had to lean on a lot of my friends that I met through community college. I had to lean on my family. And I had to take a lot of leaps of faith because being first generation, first of all, I didn't know I even was first generation until I got to school, and they, you take those questionnaires and they ask like, what was your parents' like education level? So when I asked my parents and they're like, oh, we only finished high school. And I was like, no associate, no bachelor's. I was like, does that make me first gen? And my grandpa was like, yeah, I guess so. But the only demographic that I recognized as first generation was Latine or other families that have immigrated into America. I didn't ever consider myself as first generation. And so pulling into that side of my identity, this new identity that I have as a first generation student, was like, oh, there's so many people that are first gen with me. Like, this is how I'm going to make it through. Now that I see people that are literally walking the same path as me, made it all the better. Making it to college, making it to SCSU, and being like that one member of the family to like encourage other members of my family to push through and make it into higher education. I think my education is like my biggest accomplishment so far. Getting into college, the harder part was finances, wondering how am I going to pay for it, who's going to pay for it, do I qualify for things like FAFSA, California College Grant, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, and do I have the motivation to write all these scholarships? Because people say, apply for a scholarship. You know how hard that is? Sometimes the essays that you have to write and talking about yourself, it gets long and isolating. So that was definitely a challenge, but doing it was easy once it was said and done. And then something that made it easier, like I said, was the community that I drew into. Okay, awesome. So right now, my biggest goal is going into like teaching, professing, becoming a professor, becoming an academic counselor, and really just honing in on like ethnic studies and how do we create classroom environments for students that is equitable and achievable and accessible. How do we create universities that advocate for students? How do we create atmospheres that feel more intentional and less transactional? How do we make a student feel like a student and not a number? And that's something that I'm researching right now through my Africana Studies research development. Black in San Diego, looking into what is it like being Black in San Diego. And yeah, so that's my biggest goal right now. And I'm practicing that through like being in class and like a teacher says something and I'm like, that didn't sound right. Let's advocate for it right now. Let's ask, what did you mean by that? Or like, how is this gonna impact us? Things like that. So yeah. One thing to make the process easier. I think if one thing that will make the process easier, besides like having community to like back you up on the things that you say, is having an institution that's not going to slap you on the hand when when you do the things that they ask you to do. So they're like, we want voices, we want input, and then I give you my input and you take it the wrong way, you know? So having a school that's willing to like incorporate student voices more often than they say they do. Okay, so long term, I do plan on getting my doctoral, and that's like, it feels so far away, but right now, just talking to a lot of mentors that are already either in their dissertation or have gotten their master's degree and now they're like preparing for their dissertation, just spending a lot of time with those professors and like professional staff, because I'm like letting them pour into me, and being very, very, very proactive. Like if I know I want to get my master's degree, how am I going to start applying for it like next semester, like starting spring 26, like hitting the ground running with that. So a little bit of money in my pocket, you know, just a little, you know, there'll be signs. There'll be signs. I think also knowing that I'm in a career that I chose and that I'm happy waking up doing my 9 to 5 or whatever time that I go to work, and starting every day knowing that I'm excited for what I'm going to do will tell me that. I think one thing I noticed that people's team seem to assume is that I'm like kind of quiet, or that I'm not as I don't want to say aggressive, but not as like proactive as I like actually am. Because when you first meet me, besides today, it's usually more like a reserved hello, and I sit back and observe, and then they notice over time. They're like, oh no, she has some things to say, and she's excited and she's passionate. And then how I perceive myself is like exactly that, passionate and pursued. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.